Everyone, and welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room. My name is Lewis. I'm joined today by Paul, Carter, and Tom. Got a lot of stuff to go through. It's been a rough 24 hours, I think, for everyone involved. It's fair to say. I've had to live the nightmare twice. I've had to watch that thing. I was in work, so I knew the result. Then I had to come back home and watch it, and then I had to watch it again today, so that I had my topics and my talking points. So I had to relive that nightmare more than I think anyone would like to. But hey ho, it is what it is. I've got these guys here to help cheer me up and cheer all you up. So as I say, we've got a good stream coming up. If you are new around here, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. We're on over 10,000 now. Want to keep going, want to keep aiming higher, so please make sure you do it. And there's also daily streams, 7:30 p.m. UK time. So just because you're on this one today doesn't mean there's not going to be one tomorrow. There's one every single day, so make sure you hit subscribe and tune in at 7:30. Yeah, how's everyone doing? All good?
Recovering.
Recovering. Yeah, recovering. That's, yeah. I mean, have you had any stick off anyone? Had anyone sort of making fun of you towards you or anything like that for the result?
Yes. And I just take it. A couple of my mates are Man U supporters, and my phone was blowing up when that foot goal went in. So I just turned off my phone and for an hour, but then I just man up and I just call them back and I just take my licks. Because at the end of the day, I remind him that we are joint top of the table, while Man U is hoping to get into the Europa League. So I'll take it. Plus, it gives us more motivation to go and batter them in the league in a couple of weeks' time.
Exactly, and that's the result that we need to get the win. Look, I said it before, and it's my mantra for this whole thing. There's bigger fish to fry. This is, out of all three tournaments, this is the one that I'm the least disappointed we went out of. There's so much more that we could have done, absolutely, but I'd rather lose this than lose the league game in any universe, in any conceivable way. This was probably the best competition we could crash out of. It's disappointing, of course, but it is what it is. We move on. United are celebrating beating us like they've just won the cup. For us, it's just a stepping stone to bigger things. And it leads into the first topic. And, Paul, I'll start with you first, and then we'll go around the room here. Because, like Nick says here, sad to see Cody caught the abuse, and racial abuse he's been getting. Yes, his player's been down, but that's crossing the line. And we here on the transfer room could not agree more. We don't condone anyone who decides to actually shout this abuse to a player who, yes, he's not been up to standard, but he's still a phenomenal player. He's our fifth choice attacker, and you're treating him like we're back to the days of Lambert, Barini, and Balotelli, and it's outrageous. So, I mean, Paul, get your thoughts on the Gakpo situation. The abuse obviously isn't warranted, but is criticism towards the player fair, do you think?
Usually when you lose, especially a big game like this, it's usually more than just one player, because you can always point to different points in the game where if another player make another decision, the outcome would have been different. Because even one of their goals, I think it was the equalizing goal, it was a big error by Darwin Nunez, right? And you could see him with his head in his hands when the ball went in. So had Darwin not made that mistake, we probably would not be talking about Cody, because we would have won the game. So it's usually not fair to overly criticize one player when the entire team, did not play up to the standard that we expect. Mo Salah, which is our best player, he was off yesterday. This was the very first time when Mo Salah is substituted, and I was saying to myself, maybe he should have been off 10 minutes earlier, because even though he scored a goal, and he was quite lucky he scored that goal too, but you know what? He was in the right position, so a goal is a goal. I give him that. But Salah is always a big game player, and he was really off yesterday. You could say probably he has been a little bit out of touch, missed a lot of football and so on. So the point I'm making is it's more than just one player. It's not fair to just blame Cody, because even some of the chances that we missed, I wouldn't say Cody was the biggest culprit. So I think it's disgusting if we're just trying to to put everything on him, and I really hope he's not been overly criticized because he's black, because that would be really disgusting.
Absolutely. And like Cameron says here, it won't be racial from our fans. Unfortunately, there are people out there who, even from our fan base, will probably have that opinion of him and decide to use that given the fact that it was a really poor performance. It's not fair. Like I said, he's a fantastic player, and Carter, I mean, like Paul said, he wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people culpable for it, but I think Gakpo's getting the criticism because he was a substitute who came on when maybe it wasn't the right change to make. Maybe he did have a negative impact on the game. Had the result gone the other way, people would be singing his plaudits. Like, what did you make of Gakpo as an individual, his performance? And if you had criticism for him with that game that's done in a constructive way, what would it be?
I think, yeah, as you said, like constructive criticism is good. Like it's fair, all players should have it. But like Paul kind of said, I do think some players are kind of judged to a different standard. Like I think certain players, you'd never see Carragher come out and say Harvey Elliott plays like he's in slow motion. I feel like stuff like that from people in positions like him, that's not good. You're not helping a player. It's like you've got to protect, especially as a Liverpool pundit. I don't think that was right. Like, I think we all know he kind of fits into that a bit more. He looks a bit more lethargic. He looks a bit more, he plays the game at his own pace. And maybe that's not the most Liverpool player, but sometimes that's fine. And I think we looked at last season, it worked really well. But also I think he's still got a good amount of goals and assists. I think one of the things I like is he's always at the back post. But I do just think it's really hard to criticize him. I think it's like Minamino. Minamino never got to play in the proper team, in the proper front three. And yet maybe he wasn't good enough, but he never got to be him, Mane and Salah. It was always him and Firmino, which kind of clashed. And I always think Gakpo never really gets proper 90 minutes, 3 or 4 games in a row with Salah next to him and a left winger next to him. It's always 70 minutes in right central midfield, a bit on the wing, a bit maybe left or striker, and he gets moved from one to the other. I just think you can't really judge him. If you're moving people around, it's never going to be easy. Like, I think it's very undeserved criticism. I think if you don't like him stylistically, fair enough. I'm not maybe the biggest fan stylistically, but I don't think the criticism's being way over the top.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're absolutely right. And Gakpo, in a sense, is a victim of he's so different from every other forward we've got who that will use their physical attributes to try and get in behind, like Nunez, Diaz, Jota, Salah. Gakpo is not that type of player. And I think we knew that when we signed him, Tom. Like, with regards to him, I think what Carter said there about Carragher shouldn't be criticising him. I can't necessarily agree with, because I've seen players like pundits like Roy Keane do it about United players, and he's just trying to, like you said, constructive criticism. With Gakpo, I mean, do you think this is just a dip in form for him, or do you think he's struggling to sort of fit in with the system given the way the other players around him play?
I think, like Carter said, to be fair, he's not really had a proper run in the team, has he? Like, how can you expect him to build confidence in game momentum when he's never getting a proper run? Like you said, he's always in shifting around different positions. You play an hour there, he'll come off the bench here. Like, you need a proper run. Like we've seen with Nunez, for example, since he's had a proper run in the team, he's become a different player. And like Gakpo back end of last season, he was a mainstay in that front three. And it's easy to forget how much everyone was praising him towards the back end of last season. We were all saying, like, oh, we got our Bobby replacement lined up already. It's easy to forget that because obviously it's changed. But like I said, back end of last season, the performance he was putting in, he was undroppable. And that's why obviously Nunez couldn't get in the team, because Gakpo was playing so well. So yeah, and again, like one of the boys said, he's got like 13 goals this season when he's been playing sporadically. There's still 2 months to go. So that's a good return for me. So yeah, I don't really get it. I just think it's strange how whenever we lose a game, we always seems to just go at one player for some bizarre reason. I don't know why that is, but yeah, it's strange. Like Paul said as well, Nunez gave the ball away for their goal, so I've not heard anything about Nunez. So yeah, it's strange. I don't get it, and I do think we've got a good player there, and I think he just needs some momentum to sort of get back to his best.
Well, you mentioned there, you and Carter both talked about he's not been able to get a consistent run in the team. And I've got the minute stats for him, Diaz and Nunez. I haven't included Salah because, let's face it, Salah just plays every game. And I haven't included Diogo Jota because he's been injured for quite a large chunk of the season. So Gakpo in total has played 2,320. By comparison, Diaz has played 2,687 and Nunez has played 2,442. So there is a considerable gap there, and there is validity clearly in what you're saying with regards to it. And I mean, Paul, I'll go back to you with this one. So, I agree. He does deserve a team. He does deserve a run in the team, but in the same breath, I mean, if a player's not performing to a high enough standard, he has to earn his way into the team to get the minutes to begin with. And like I said here, Gakpo is lazy. Should we be worried in a sense of, yes, he hasn't had minutes. Yes, he hasn't had a lot of game back time by comparison to others. But when he is coming into the team, bar scoring the odd poacher's goal, he's not offering much in terms of attack and play. He's not really contributing anything to the system that we've put in place.
We have to remember, though, that we have 5 front players. Gakpo is one of 5. And I think most of us will agree that if everybody is fit, he is probably not in the top 3. So we can't be judging him as if he is our number one forward, which is where the argument is probably suggesting. So it's kind of hard to just be coming off the bench all the while. And not only just coming off the bench, but coming on in different positions, in different situations, and expect to maintain that high standard. So I don't think we should criticize him much more. You could make the argument that the similarities between Lucho and Cody and to a lesser extent Jota, it's too much. In other words, it's too similar. Is it better for us to have 3 world-class forwards where game in, game out, these are the 3, like we had with Bobby, Sadio, and Salah? Or is it better to have 5 good players with 1 world-class with Salah, and then every game we have this discussion about who should start? Probably the former is the better option. But so that's why if somebody said to me, you know what, if we move let's say Cody and Lucho and get a world-class left winger, like say Rafael Leo, so we're swapping 2 to get 1. I wouldn't be opposed to that sort of scenario, because Cody probably might just be a good squad player. And there's really nothing wrong with having a good squad player, because you need more than 11 players. So he probably right now might not be our first choice based on his style of play and his performance. So if he's a bench player, then are we expecting too much of him? Probably. But I'm starting to get the feeling that I think we should not just accept that we have these 5 players, and we should look and to see if there's a way we can upgrade our front line. So, and maybe, just maybe, he might just be a good squad player, kind of like the Origi kind of player. Not somebody who's going to start every day or start in big games, but somebody who can come on and give you solid minutes, versatile, and can play anywhere across the front line. So I think that could be his role going forward.
You mentioned there, wouldn't be opposed to selling 2 players and bringing in 1. And it is the phrase, too many cooks spoil the broth. Maybe we do have too many attackers. Maybe that is a bit of a problem, and it's hard to get that play time. City have done it for so long. They make it work. So maybe we trying to emulate that style just isn't a thing for us. Now, I want to get your opinion on this, Carter, because it's something that, as Paul was saying it then, he mentioned that front 3 of Mane, Firmino and Salah. And when Diaz came in, obviously there was the comparisons of Sadio Mane, and I think he suffered with it. He struggled with it at points because it was he was never going to live up to that hype, that expectation. Do you think there could be anything in the sense of people are comparing Gakpo to Firmino, and because what Firmino did, he was able to make not doing a lot look effortless. Like if that makes sense to it, he did everything so simple and calm that when Gakpo isn't doing anything, he just instantly gets compared to Firmino, and he's not living up to the same heights that he did.
I think it's quite difficult because I think Firmino, the thing that he'll always have going for him, like I'd say guys like him, Dele Alli, Gakpo kind of fall into the same bracket. But Firmino always has the thing of he works hard and he looks like he's working hard.
Yeah.
So no matter what, you look at him and go, yeah, well, he might not be at his best. Normally he was always like 7 out of 8, 7 or 8 out of 10. But he'd always look like he's working hard. And I think for Gakpo, I think we've almost signed like a bit of a specialist player who needs to be like, everything needs to be built around him. Because I think him and Diaz, if you could put them together, you'd have some player. Like I think Diaz is almost elite at everything until he gets to the box. And I think Gakpo is elite if you I know he's missed a few chances recently, but if you just gave Gakpo like good chances to finish, I think he'd be unbelievable. But he can't get himself. I always think he never gets himself in those situations. Like Jota always, you think, oh, he's always had 1 or 2 good chances. Nunez always has 1 or 2 good chances. Salah always has 1 or 2 good chances. But there might be 2 or 3 games that go by and you actually think Gakpo hasn't really had a one-on-one or like a really open chance. So I think it's a bit difficult. I agree with kind of with what Paul said. Like I think a good big positive for us is Ben Doak. I think people have forgotten with all the 800 other children that have come into the team and played really well that we've got this guy who was getting minutes when we had a full squad. And I think it's what we've had a lot of injuries. So we need to balance. Like I think 5 is a good amount plus Ben Doak. But I think if you look at someone like Edwards and the Hughes guy, maybe we do. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Jota or a Diaz move on just because they're getting older. And I also think, I don't think Gakpo and Diaz work well together. I think a lot of it's about partnerships. And I think before you had kind of a perfect 3, whereas now it's a bit like, I think Salah and Nunez work, but I don't always think the left winger works with those 2. So I think it'll be very interesting going forward. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see a few people move on.
No, I agree. And I think with a new manager coming in, he's going to struggle to try and fit all of these players into a squad. And that'll lead into a topic that we're going to discuss in a bit. But yeah, it is going to be a big summer change. We are probably going to see 1 or 2 players move on. And I think, like the comments is there, I think Cody or Diaz, maybe both, are probably the most likely candidates to move on, with an outside chance of Jota, just depending. I love Jota, obviously, but we never know what the new manager's going to say. Willem makes a good point, though. Cody had a double against United, vital goal against Everton, goal in the farce versus Spurs, where we got robbed. He's had his moments. He's just really out of form. And maybe that's true. And look, Tom, I mean, you mentioned Gakpo before. Obviously, we've gone over him briefly. Now, there are people saying we knew what Origi was. Cody's doing nothing. Dan's has more intensity to his game. I mean, I know my thoughts on this. I want to get your thoughts with regards to the whole Dan's thing, because for me personally, Dan's has only played like 2-3 games. And because he scored in one of those games, people are going, he's better than Cody Gakpo. He should be on the bench over him. But the minute Dan sort of goes on a scoreless run, it's then going to be, well, why is he on the bench? And maybe, like Paul said before, just get your thoughts on both that, but also your thoughts on maybe the criticism is because of the result rather than the actual player himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very reactionary fan base again. I mean, we've only seen a small snippet of Jadon Dan's. Like, we know his potential, but to say he's anywhere near Cody Gakpo right now, Holland international, like proven goal scorer for many years now, to say like Jadon Dan should be ahead of him is that's laughable, really. But yeah, it's strange one. In terms of the result, no one had mentioned Gakpo. Everyone would just be mentioning about how we're going to Wembley again. What a team we are. We're in for the quad. Gakpo wouldn't get a mention, but just because obviously we conceded them goals, everyone's going in on Gakpo, which he had nothing to do with. So yeah, again, like I said, it's just the criticism of him for yesterday's beyond bizarre. I know he's not in the best form, but he had no part in that yesterday for me. Didn't have a great impact on the game, but if you're going to play, if you are going to really go in on someone like we always seem to do, then it's Nunez for yesterday, because if he doesn't give that ball away, then none of this happened, does it? So yeah, like I said, I'm on board with Gakpo. I'm still ready to back him. He's still quite a young player as well, so need to give him time. As we said, he's not like your main man. He's not a Salah. He's a squad player really to come in and out. So for me, I'm happy with him, and yeah, it's just reactionary as per usual from our fan base.
I mean, what you said there. You said he's a squad player, right? Everyone watching, and just cast your minds back to when we had Voronin, Barini, Robbie Keane, Andy Carroll. Like, these were our squad players, and now we've got Cody Gakpo as our 5th choice attacker. Like, we're lucky. Do you know? It's like, and Tom, I want to keep it with you for a second because like you said, it's reactionary, and we've mentioned constructive criticism. If you've got feedback on a player, voice it. But obviously, abusing that player and giving horrible abuse online when we're living in an age where it doesn't matter where you are or what you do, millions of people have access to you via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. How hard do you think it is in the modern game to manage someone when they are continuously receiving stick over a 24-hour period? And just like, we talk about mental health in the modern game being such a big thing. I mean, do you think this could have any kind of impact on Cody Gakpo, and how hard do you think it'd be to sort of manage that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it would do. I mean, we know these players are made of money and everything, but they're still human. Like, you know, you getting all these messages through is not going to do anything positive for him, is it? Obviously, we forget he's still like a young lad in a foreign country. Like, to see all his so-called supporters just getting on his back. You know, a few cases of like racial abuse. Like, it's not going to exactly make him sort of feel at home, feel confident. You know, walking out in front of Anfield, is it? So, yeah, I just, as I said, it's nothing positive is going to come from that. It sounds like man managing him. I mean, I'm sure he's like mature enough to, you know, try and sort of put it to the back of his head. And I don't think he particularly needs like a arm around him or anything. But as I said, it's not you know, helpful in any way. Just the nature of social media today, really, isn't it? Like, you've just got to, unfortunately, you've just got to kind of expect that if you're not playing well, which is a kind of sad state of affairs, really.
Yeah, it is. And look, like put here, people gave Nunez time when he was missing because we saw he was trying. I just don't see what Cody does. No desire from him. That's fine. I mean, in a sense, I do agree. Paul, I mean, you're, in my opinion, one of the most honest fans I think it's safe to say that I've met. Like, you'll say it how it is. In your honest truth, do you see Gakpo staying beyond this summer window, given the form that he's in? Not as a criticism to him, not as a oh, you're rubbish, get gone, but do you think the new manager coming in could find a system for him, or do you think he is the odd man out in this squad and he probably would be the one to be moved on in summer?
I think one or two of Gakpo, Lucha, and Jota will be gone because I think they are way too similar. And again, if you go back to our best front three, the best front three I've had in the last 20 years has been Bobby Firmino, Salah, and Sadio. Salah was an out-and-out right winger. That's all he does. While Mane was really a left winger, while Bobby was not a winger. Bobby was number 9, false 9, you know, drop deep and provide for his two players on the flank. Now, we don't have that kind of player. What we have is a right winger and 4 left wingers. None of them will really want to play that false 9, you know, that deeper role. So, because even Jota is good in the box, but Jota is really prefer to be coming off the wing. So, as I said, they are too similar. So I would probably believe that we need something different. I think Nunez is going nowhere. And even Nunez too, maybe his best position is a winger, is on the wing. But he has to be playing down the middle because we have all of these other guys who everybody wants to play on the same side. So yes, it's nice to have, to say we have the best attacking front five in world football, but we may not have the best attacking front three that we can have. So, and I think the Edwards is a very smart man. So
Mm.
I would not be surprised if we get an upgrade on our front line. We might think, what, our front line is really well done, and we just need to sort out other areas. We need a DM, we need a left sided centre back, we need a fullback, etc., etc. But yeah, I started to see some cracks in the front five in terms of how it comes together. Um, because sometimes we have been getting some results, yes, but if you really look beyond the results and look at the play and look at how these guys link up, there are deficiencies there, you know. And is it coincidence that when Salah is away, we see a little bit more fluidity because, we can spread them a little bit more? Probably. But I would be very surprised if we start next season with the same front five.
No, I agree. And look, you mentioned two things there, which will lead us into the next topic. You mentioned Michael Edwards, and you mentioned a possibly new player coming into the attack. So we're going to go on to the positive notes. Once again, Cody Gakpo, we do love you. Anyone who's sending horrific messages or any sort of criticism that has nothing to do with being constructive and just being outright nasty and horrible, put the opinion on a piece of paper and shove it somewhere, because I don't want to hear it. I don't think anyone does, to be honest, nor does Cody. So we're going to move on to the fun stuff, because we've obviously got a summer window coming up, and Paul mentioned there a lot of change, because that is probably going to happen. And there's a lot of players who break in the past hour or so after I planned my stream. Thank you. Who are linked with us. So one player, and Carter, you're getting the first crack at these ones. You can give me your thoughts on each of them, to be honest. Donyell Marlin is apparently someone who is looking to leave Dortmund this summer, 25 years old. He's a very talented player, previously at PSV. Same place we got Gakpo, actually. He's looking to leave Dortmund. Man United are currently the front runners for that. And another one is Joshua Kimmich. Now, there's 5 teams in for him at the minute. They are Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. So the tippy top. Give me your thoughts on both of those players, and could you see a world where either of them do actually come to us in the summer?
Well, I think the Marlon one's quite interesting, because I did look on FB Ref, and it was like, who's the most similar player to Marlon in the top 5 leagues, and that was Jota. And I think he's got for the amount of minutes he's played, he's got a lot of goals, and he's quite like a sort of Jota-sized player. He's quick, he's a finisher, and he won't cost that much money. So as we kind of said, maybe if you move 2 guys on, if you sold, because we were linked to selling Diaz, if you could sell Diaz for 70 million, I think Marlon's only going to cost you 25-ish. So you could easily get a big money transfer and still bring him in. So I think he'd be quite interesting. Personally, I think the next attacker, unless it's a younger player, I think they need to be a bit of a world beater. I think they need to be Kvaratskhelia, they need to be Musiala, they need to be Leao, they need to be in that top bracket. So I think maybe I'd look at someone else. But for Kimmich, I think it's very interesting. But they have a lot of issues that we had. Their issue at Bayern, to what I understand, is the midfield's very get at a ball, you can charge them. He needs a player who's a destroyer sort of next to him. And we've already had that issue. I don't think he can play as a lone 6. So for us, then, are you sacrificing McAllister? Are you sacrificing Szoboszlai? I just don't think, for how we've built our squad, if this was last summer, I'd be 100% all over it. Go and get him. But I think we've signed too many players now. I just don't. And also, even if Gravenberch falls into the Gakpo thing of being maybe looking a bit lazy sometimes, personally, with the midfield we've got, I'd rather have a 21-year-old Gravenberch than a 29-year-old Kimmich. So I think we'll definitely look at him, but I definitely think I'll end up at a different team.
Well, you mentioned young players there. Another one who I forgot to mention as well is Bakayoko. He's another one that we're apparently linked to. We've been linked to him for a few months now, and I think it's because the Salah rumours. There's all this talk of Salah going. As you know, El Hero says here, need a right winger. Salah's getting old. Like Tom, I mean, obviously give your thoughts on Marlon as well, but the Kimmich one's really interesting to me because in the summer our objective was young CDM. You know, Lavia linked to us, almost done. Caicedo linked to us, that whole debacle on like towards the end of the window. Kimmich doesn't fit the mold of young CDM looking to come through. Where you know does it make sense? We signed Endo, who's been fantastic, but do we really need another CDM who? I think he's approaching his 30s or he's in his 30s. Like, is it necessary, and the wage he's going to be on as well?
Well, he's 29, I think, isn't he? So he's not a bad age.
Yeah.
29, yeah. I definitely don't think it's necessary, but I also don't think it'd do any harm at all. Like, it would be a luxury signing, but if you get him for a cut price, like the Thiago type price, like 20 mil or whatever, something like that, I think he's worth the risk because I think he's a world class player still. I think on the ball, his passing range, there's only a handful of players in the world that I think are on his level in that regard. So yeah, if you can get it for a cut price deal, 29, you've still got a few good years out of him. You can't have enough top class players, and I think he is that. So I wouldn't be against it at all, to be fair. Obviously, you do need that destroyer next to him. Kimmich and Endo could work, but then you've obviously got Szoboszlai and McAllister then fighting for one spot. But then again, it's a good problem to have. So yeah, I'd take him, to be honest. Probably an unpopular one, but I would take him. In terms of Marlon, as a squad player, I wouldn't mind it. I don't think he's really a player that's going to fire you to a league title or a Champions League or whatever. But as a squad player, I wouldn't mind it again. If you get him for like 30 mil, then it's low risk. So it wouldn't get me off my seat like per se, but wouldn't be against it. But Kimmich, I'd actually be definitely all for you.
You just to throw it back. I mean, you said that Daniel Marlin's not really the type of player to propel us to a league title. I don't think anyone thought Mo Salah was going to be the one to propel us to a league title when he came in. Same with Mane, same with Firmino. So I mean, a new manager coming in. I mean, say if Alonso does come in, just as an example, there is that chance he could make him a great player. I mean, is that a risk worth taking for a 25-year-old who Dortmund are going to command a high price for, do you think?
Yeah, again, like I said, maybe at a cut price, I wouldn't be going beyond like 30, 35 mil for him. I wouldn't certainly say it's not a priority unless, you get rid of Jota, then, that could be a decent replacement for him, a couple of years younger and slightly better injury record, I think. So it does obviously have some positives. Obviously got good Dutch connection in the team as well. So yeah, I wouldn't be against it definitely, but I think for the level we're trying to get to, we should probably be trying to get a slightly higher quality profile of player for me.
No, I think that's fair enough. And there's a lot of comments that are throwing different opinions around. And message everyone, let us know, who are you wanting us to sign as just say a winger, for example, and also put in the comments, would you sign Joshua Kimmich, yes or no? Because I think that's quite an interesting one, to be fair. Anthony says right wing, Jared Bowen. That's a name that's been thrown around plenty. Pedro Neto is another one. Pedro Neto, again, if he wasn't made of glass, absolutely. We don't need another situation with an injury-prone player coming in. I'm looking at you, Thiago. Paul, I mean, I want to get your thoughts on, like I said before, specifically the Joshua Kimmich one. I think the Marlon one's exciting, but we're linked to every winger under the sun. Whereas us being linked to a CDM nowadays, it seems to have died down since Andre pretty much is, he's not coming at this point. So since then, the talk's died down. Just to go through some of Kimmich's stats with you, he gets 1.76 tackles per game, 0.76 interceptions, and he wins 5.76 of his ground duels. And yes, it's Bayern. Yes, they should win the league every season, but they've struggled this season, and he's still in the top 90% of defensive midfielders in Europe in terms of his the goals they're conceding per minute and also his tackle percentage. He's right up there. So yes, he's 29, But is there a thing to say he's a squad player? If we're going to be losing the likes of Thiago, we don't know how Bajcetic is going to be when he comes back. We're probably going to loan a few players out. I mean, is it a bad option to have as a rotation player?
I think we're 2 years late to be going for Kimmich. That's just my opinion. He's 29. I don't think he has been that great this year, to be fair. As a matter of fact, I think he was just left out of the Germany national team, which was announced a few days ago. So that should tell you something. If we're going to be, we already have Endo, who is 30 or 31, which we think was bought, to give us a couple of years while we wait on somebody like Bajcetic, etc. And when I did a count yesterday, if we include the two guys we have at Hull, as Carvalho and Tyler Martin, we have 12 midfielders in the squad right now. That's 1 dozen, 12, right? So I don't know. I think we need to allow the incoming manager, to see exactly, what we have got. This talk is that we need another CDM. I don't know. I think we need to assess these 12 guys. We definitely don't need 12 midfielders. So we need to see the 2 or 3 that we need to move on. We need to see the 2 or 3 that we might think as an 8 that we can convert to a 6. Kind of what we did with Genie. But because Joshua's going to be costing us $350 a week, maybe. So. Yeah. I'm not too fond of that. If we're looking for an older guy to play CDM, then why don't we go for Paulina then? Because we can get Paulina, I'm thinking, for about 40 million right now, because I think his market is down significantly. And I think he's a year younger than Kimmich. Plus, he also has Premier League experience. He's a fantastic tackler. I like his attitude, and you know exactly what you're going to get. So I don't see why we off Paulina and going for Kimmich right now. And usually when a player of that stature is having problems at a club like Bayern, and Bayern is willing to offload him, a lot of times they are something that they know that we don't know, and they probably they will be very careful in all of these kind of stuff because they don't want to reduce his value. So it doesn't really excite me, to be honest. I think there are better options out there. And bearing in mind, again, as I said, we have so many young midfielders. We need to see exactly what we have. We need to decide who we're going to keep, who we're going to move on, who we're going to try and play the 6. Because at least Endo can give us, I think, at least 2 solid years, while we develop one of these young guys, be it McConnell, be it Stefan, before we make that decision. Because there are other areas of the pitch that we need to focus on right now. As it relates to Daniel Marlon, it doesn't really excite me, to be honest. I don't think he's an upgrade over Lucho and Cody, to be fair. That's just my opinion. I would like another left winger for sure, but I need somebody who is going to come in and be a difference maker. And I really, really like the guy, Rafael Leao. We might not be able to get him. Yeah. Not sure if he's for sale, or it might be costing 100 million. But if somebody said to me, you know what, if we can move Jota and Lucho and get, say, 120 combined, and we can get Rafael Leao for 100, I'd make that deal any day. Moving from 5 to 4, but we have better quality with say Cody as a backup. That to me would be a better option than have these 5 guys. But I am not. Marlon doesn't really excite me. Neither does Kimmich.
I mean, look, I think that's fair enough. I think Kimmich is a very exciting player to certain clubs. I'm looking at like your Man United, for example. It's that type of signing they'd make where it's a name value player. They bring him in because he's
like Casemiro
at one stage. Yeah, like Casemiro or not Di Maria as such, but Bastian Schweinsteiger, stuff like that. They bring him in for the big name value. And we aren't like that nowadays. We have Michael Edwards coming back, who's a lot more data driven with his approach. Richard Hughes, who at Bournemouth, he was aiming for the young talents that we could develop. And I mean, Carter, you mentioned a few players before. You talked about young wingers, young exciting players who are going to be coming in. Is that still going to be the approach, do you think, given we don't know who the new manager is going to be? And it's always going to come back to this because it's such a big thing, but maybe the new manager coming in doesn't particularly want young players he has to develop. Maybe he does want some more ready-made, stable players like a Kimmich who's going to be able to come in and just sort of keep things steady for a season until he can get the players he wants to bring in. I mean, is the validity in that argument possibly?
I think, to be honest, they might not have much choice now with the amount of power Edwards has. But I think the good thing is Edwards, it's not a complete cut-off point, but I do think for like proper expensive signings, it's around 25 or 26 is sort of the oldest he's going to sign. Because I think they look at it and you look at Chelsea and you go, it's a lot easier to come in and kick on when you're 24, 25, like Mane and Salah were, like Firmino was. It's a lot easier to come in when you played 6 or 7 years of football to come in and hit the ground running. But I also think at the same time, we're now, obviously we couldn't get Tchouaméni, but I think we're in a much stronger position to go and get, is it a start Luis Diaz, who's at Palmeiras, who we're always linked to on Twitter, or some top young emerging French player. We're in a much stronger position to go out and sign these guys. Like, for me, I really like, I've only seen like highlights, but I think Matthias Tell looks really, really good at Bayern. I really like sort of the way he finishes. I think he looks like he's going to be a superstar. I like Xavi Simons. I think he'd be very difficult to get out of PSG. But I think personally, I think with someone like Endo, he's given us time to find the next guy. Like, for me personally, I think next year this summer we can get away with not signing a 6. But after that, we have to, because you look at Fabinho, you look at Henderson, you look at all these guys, they did like 30 at that point when you've got to cover a lot of ground. You're not going to be that good. And I think statistically, he was on a big decline. Last year at Stuttgart, his stats like went down massively. And that was a big talking point on like places like Twitter and stuff. And he's done well, but also it's probably easier to play number 6 kind of for us when you've got Konate and Van Dijk and you've got all these top players around you. So I do think it will be interesting. I think Edwards hopefully now can go out like we did with Van Dijk and Alisson. I think he'll look for those type of guys maybe who are actually probably world class, but because they play for Roma, because they play for Southampton, because we're all probably guilty of it as well. I would probably never say someone playing at West Ham is world class. But then all it takes is that one jump, and then you go after one game, people saying Declan Rice. Like, I actually did think he was really good before, but sometimes it's those type of guys I think we're going to sign, like Rice, Alisson, Van Dijk, guys who are already ready and they'll just kick on as soon as they hit the ground.
I have a question for
That
Carter.
does need to be it. Yeah, go on, Paul.
So, Carter, you don't think we could take next year and figure out if we have a 6, if we can convert one of these guys that we already have, be it Tyler Martin, be it Stefan, be it McConnell. Whilst we have Endo, let's say we have Endo at top for at least another 12, 18 months. Because, yes, he's Japanese, it runs forever, but he's getting older. Shouldn't we be looking to see if we have a 6 that we can mold? Because rather than while we address other areas of the pitch, because I'm one of those that don't agree that Stefan's best position is an 8, because he grew up as a centre back. He actually plays centre back for the Spanish under 21s. So I would really like to see us try to develop him as a 6 before we worry about bringing in somebody else. So, what's your thoughts on that?
I am one of those people who maybe thinks he's a bit better as an 8, but I think he'll still be very good as a 6. I just think he might be better as an 8. Like, it's marginal, but I just think he'll be slightly better. But I think if you look at all the top teams, when even Declan Rice had to come through as a centre half, I don't think it's very natural for players in top teams to come through as defensive midfielders. Like, the last guy who I can actually remember coming through as a 6 as a top player was Busquets. And I think he was like 21, 22 when he started playing lots of games for the Barca B team. So I think if you look at all sort of successful teams, what I think you need age and experience. Like I think that's maybe a step if we said in 5 or 6 years' time to Bajcetic, well, there's this new guy who's Brazilian, who's 21, who's an unbelievable number 8. We'll move you back because we think you're capable of that. Right now, I think we need a bit more steel, a bit more experience, like Endo has, but maybe 6 or 7 years younger. Like, as you said, Paulinho would be maybe someone, but I just think I would like someone 24, 25, unless they're an absolute world beater. I think 24, 25 is what you kind of need in that position. Like, I get your point, but I think that's maybe a step those guys can make at a later date, because no matter what, just having that inexperience in number 6 is going to cost you. Like, I'm not blaming Bradley, but when Bradley ran back, I do kind of agree with what people said. He should have just smashed Diallo on the edge of the box. And sometimes you get that sort of experience and know what to do with a bit of age. So I think it's a bit difficult to get a number 6 like in the next year or two from that young group of lads.
Tom, can I get your thoughts on that?
In terms of Stefan, I do kind of agree. He's more kind of built for an 8. Obviously, he's got still some physical development to do, but he's very, very good on the ball. He's athletic, so I think he did very well in both positions, to be fair. But I did prefer him as an 8. So yeah, but what was the other part? Sorry.
Like, what is... Carter made the point, and everyone in the comments, let me know. Message in the comments, yes or no. Should we sign a number 6 this summer? Like, do you think we could go the window without signing a number 6, given the players we've already got, and maybe develop a young player? Or would you be going into this window saying, no, we have to go out and sign someone who's young, who's going to turn into the next big CDM for Liverpool?
Yeah, I don't think a number 6 is a priority by any means. Endo's been superb. He's been one of our players of the season. So to say that we need to kind of replace him would be, a bit of a mad statement, I would say. And then, like I said, obviously you got Bajcetic there. You don't know how he's going to come back, but you know how talented he can be. So I think you have Endo a couple more years, and then you kind of have Stefan coming in and out the team, and then you hope, by the time Endo sort of tails off, that Stefan's ready to take that mantle. But I do think the new manager this year is in for kind of coming into a bit of a luxury position, because I do think even though there's going to be a lot of change over the summer, I don't really see a need for like a rebuild of the team per se. I think we're well covered in majority of positions. I think we're already going to be making luxury signings and replacements this summer, to be honest. I don't think we're going into it thinking we have to get this position, because I think we're very well stacked, to be honest. I think the squad's in a very good place, and that's been shown by the results of the performances this season. So, yeah, I think overall, I wouldn't say a 6 priority at all. And I do think, like I said, we are in a very strong position, and the manager coming in is in quite a rare position where he's not coming into a rebuild. He's just kind of, adding the cherry on the cake, if you will, to, hopefully, carry on challenging City and hopefully add a couple of titles in there.
Well, I mean,
if I may just
like
pop in
Dylan
1
said,
minute below.
Yeah, no, go for it, Paul.
Yeah. You see, one other thing that we need to consider as well, right? First of all, we have Trent, right? Trent is our vice captain. We have to find a way to facilitate Trent. There is a feeling among a lot of supporters that Conor Bradley is our right back, so therefore Trent should move to midfield. I'm not so sure I'm ready to do that yet, but I understand where that sentiment is coming from. Again, I don't see Trent as a 6, certainly not an out-and-out 6 by himself. So then, if you have Gravenberch, Trent, Curtis Jones, Szoboszlai, Maka, we have so many. We have about 6, 7, 8 number 8s. So if a guy like Stefan is going to continue to be with the squad and to command game time, he has to accept it in his mind that his best position, or his best opportunity, I should say, is a number 6. So I don't know. I think we have so much number. Everybody wants to be a number 8. Is it because it's a glamour position, or is it because it's easier? because I am not convinced that Trent is a 6, and I think that Trent needs to play. So therein lies the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've gone from the space of 12 months ago to have it where we had 3 options and we were resorted to playing players in ungodly positions they weren't used to now we've got so many players that we could field 3 starting 11s essentially. Like we're in a good spot. Like Willem said before, like we don't know who's coming in. We don't know what formation they're going to play. We don't know who they like. Yeah, Trent's our vice captain, but he's our vice captain under Klopp. There's no guarantee because a new manager comes in, he instantly goes, "You're the vice captain. You have to stay." Like he might not. I mean, he'd be mad not to, but he might not like Trent. He might not favour Trent. We don't know anything at this point. And Bajcetic, unfortunately, I think has missed the chance this season to feature a sufficient amount. We'll come into crunch time. We're in the Europa League knockout stages. I don't see him. Every team's getting harder and harder. I don't think he's going to feature much in that. I don't see him featuring in the Premier League because we're in a title race. Had he been earlier in the season, where there were those games that you could afford to lose, the Europa League groups, the early rounds of the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, maybe. But now we're at a point where we have to win every game, and I just don't see Bajcetic featuring. With regards to number 8, number 6 dilemma, I think I agree with Tom and Carter. I think he's better as a number 8 because I've never viewed Bajcetic as a physically strong player, and you don't necessarily have to be a number 6, but a good number 6 should be able to commit to a tackle and at least be imperious in the space of midfield. And I don't see that from Bajcetic myself personally. Might be wrong, but anyone in the comments, please let me know. What is your preferred position for Bajcetic? Is it the 6, like Paul says, or the 8, like Carter and Tom says? Because he's a very versatile player, but we're still yet to know where to put him because we haven't seen enough of him, in my personal opinion. Now, we've got one last thing to discuss because, a lot's gone on with regards to the transfers. We've had a really interesting debate with regards to that. If you are new around here, please make sure to hit like and subscribe for more content. And there are daily streams every single day, 7:30 p.m. So make sure you tune in for them. But for the last 5 minutes or so, we're just going to quickly go over any questions you guys have got. Please put them in the comments. Let us know anything you want to ask, anything that you're curious about, or anything you've heard. And Carter, I mean, I've put it in the title, injury updates. I'll touch on you with this one because there's not a lot to say. We don't know a huge amount, but are we going to get luck at all with these injuries? Nunez, Gakpo, Diaz now. I mean, this international break came at the right time, don't you think?
I think we got quite lucky because I think a lot of I think someone like Bielsa isn't going to be too opposed to Nunez missing friendlies. I think he's someone very of that ilk. Like, I think a lot of the players, because they're established and starters and it's friendlies, like Messi's not playing in the friendlies. Look, a few City players aren't. Gabriel wasn't playing for Arsenal. I think a lot of this now is everyone just saying, look, they're friendlies. These guys don't need to play. Let's keep them. I think they will be fit. And I think now it's good. I think we'll hopefully get more luck now because we've got some less games. Like, the worst thing would be if we'd got City or Chelsea in the semi-final and had to play 120 minutes again, because then who knows, someone pulls up, someone else pulls up. Like Man United had Bruno was running around injured for the last 10 minutes. Like, that's the worst thing we want. So I think going forwards we should get a bit more luck. And I think as well we'll play a game week where City don't play, so it's only positives for us going forwards, I think.
I hope so. We need some positives, let's be honest. Everything's not all doom and gloom, but we definitely do need some. Tom, I'll put this one to you. Nick's the streets are buzzing. I've just put this in. Oh, no, sorry. Nick's the street are buzzing. Copyright. Can't forget that part at the end of it. But lads, would you cash in on Alisson if you get 80 million and give Kelleher the number 1? I mean, Tom, give your thoughts on
that. No. Don't think I need to say much more, really, do it. No, I don't know why you'd sell the best keeper in the world for any money. I mean, Kelleher's done well. He's a good deputy, but he's no more than that. You got Alisson Becker there. He's, what more do we need to say about him that we haven't already said? He's just absolutely world class in every department. Shame about his injury record, but he's one of the best keepers I've ever seen in my lifetime, maybe arguably possibly the best. So yeah, I wouldn't be considering selling him for any money, even though Kelleher's done well and he's a great backup. But there's, as some people say, there's levels to this thing, and Alisson is untouchable, and I wouldn't take any transfer fee for him.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like Alisson is. Well, if we sell Alisson, we've got Kelleher, and then Adrian's the backup. Like, if you want to raise money, there's other players to sell. I mean, Paul, get your thoughts on that.
I agree. Kelleher is solid. Alisson is world class, and there's a big difference, right? Kelleher hasn't really made any mistakes in the last couple of games, but also he hasn't really been that world class, if I'm being harsh. Because if you look at the first goal yesterday, nobody's going to say that's his fault, right? Because the defense was in shambles on that play. But probably I think Alisson saves that. But that is a ball that he could probably catch. Instead, he palmed it right back into the middle of the 6-yard box. So, and those small differences are the differences between being solid, Kelleher, and world-class Alisson. So, and those small differences it could be between winning a tournament, winning a game, and not. So, and also to bear in mind that goalkeepers tend to play for much longer. Manuel Neuer, how old is he now? 38, 39? Still going strong.
He's in his 30s.
Yeah, I think Alisson have another 4 or 5 years at the top of his game. So, no, I would not consider selling Alisson under no circumstances.
No, I like Willem said before, we don't know who the new manager's going to be. We don't know who's going to fit the system. A keeper just fits in any system, essentially. Like, unless you're Pep and you're really fussy, like Joe Hart won't do for me. Oh, let's get Claudio Bravo. Alisson fits into any manager's system, regardless of who comes in. I don't think selling him is really the best option. But thank you though for the question, Nick. I mean, it's interesting. It gets us thinking, and at the moment, anything to take my mind off of yesterday is a bonus. So thank you for that. I mean, Anthony says I agree with Paul. Bradley right back, Trent in midfield, like Carter, and I'll pass to you, Tom, to sort of wrap this up. Like apparently the rumours were if Trent was fit. He was going to play in midfield for England. Like, we've seen him do it before. He can play as a midfielder. Is it time to move him there? Like, is this it now?
I think a good comparison, because I know Paul likes his American sports. I think it's like Patrick Mahomes is like Trent. You've got this guy who can do stuff that no one in his position has ever been able to do, and you're going to tell him to go and do something else. Like, as good as Conor Bradley is, when Conor Bradley's got the ball on the halfway line, I don't think we're going to score. When Trent's got the ball on the halfway line, I'm looking across at Luis Diaz, I'm looking at Diogo Jota, I'm looking at Nunez. Because all it takes is Trent to look up and a 60-yard ball to someone's feet. I don't get why you would want to take Trent out of right back and lose a very talented midfielder. For as good as Bradley is, like, I don't think he's a creative hub. I think he can do a good cross. I think he might score some goals, but I wouldn't say he's a hub of like creativity. Like someone like Elliott, I would say makes things happen. I think Bradley might put good crosses in, but I just don't understand. Like for England, maybe you think it's a knockout tournament. You don't have a centre back who can protect the space like Konate. Fair enough. Put him in midfield. Best players on the pitch. Why not? But I think for us, we can afford to cover the space and let Trent go further up and sort of do what he wants. And I just think if you told me you have to drop one of McAllister or Szoboszlai to play Trent in midfield and have Bradley at right back, I'd rather have Trent at right back and keep those guys in midfield. I think you have a lot more talent and ability on the pitch with those two instead of Bradley, which is no knock on Bradley. It's just they're top elite players at the top of their game.
No, absolutely. I think that's a fair way to explain it and to describe it, to be honest. And Tom, you're going to get this one. It's going to have to be your answer to this. And then Paul and Carter, I want to get your not one word, 2 words, because I need the name, obviously. But Tom, who's the centre-back signing for you in the summer?
Again, I don't think it's like a necessary sign. We've got 3 quality ones there, even without Matip. But that's probably have to be a left-footed one. So I suppose Inacio springs to mind. But yeah, I don't think there's too many quality ones out there. If Matip stays, I think I'd argue we don't need one. We've got 4 very good options there. I know Matip's injury prone, but you still got 4 very good options there. So yeah, I probably would go Inacio just for the left-footed factor. But again, I wouldn't say a centre back is a must this summer, to be honest.
So I'm going to go to you, Paul, and I'm going to go to you, Carter. I just need the name. Who's the centre back that you're wanting this summer? I'll give you a couple seconds, but yeah.
You see, you put us on the spot there, Lou, because it's easy. I can give you the easy name, the Incapia, the Inacio, but the problem is those kind of guys at those prices, those high profile, don't see themselves as bench players. Those kind of guys wouldn't want to come and play right away. And I don't think we're going to be unless we're going to be playing 3 at the back, then I don't see how they get into the team, because nobody's going to move Konate and Van Dijk. So ideally, you would want a young left-footed centre-back, which I can't give you a name, if you're asking me for a name for somebody like that right now, But I don't think we're going to get any of those easy names, those Inacio, those Hincapié, etc., etc. It's a little more complicated than that, So I don't know. I can't give you a name, but we're gonna just sign a youngster. How about our own youngster, Vandenberg? Is he any good? I don't know.
Yes, thank you. That was my answer, Vandenberg. Love Vandenberg. Carter?
I'm going to go very left field. I thought we should have signed him because he had a hard season in Holland the other year. I thought Calvin Bassey made perfect sense.
Ooh.
I think he's horrible to play against. I think if you're a right winger, he had issues at Fulham because he's very left-footed, but he's big, he's massive, he's quick, he's decent on the ball. I think there's a lot of issues that are happening at Ajax last 2 years. So I think you can kind of free the blame from a young lad who's gone from Rangers to Ajax, probably playing completely different style, completely different sort of setup, was sort of crucified by the media. I think he'd suit us really well as sort of a much cheaper option to Inacio or Hincapié.
Yeah.
I have a name.
No, I'm happy.
I'm the perfect person. He's left-footed. He's 25. He has Premier League experience. He can play. He's a centre back that can play left back, and he'll be a free agent. Nope.
Okay,
he's 25, and he'll be a free agent. Premier League experience. Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah,
that's his name?
He's good. Yeah, he's good. The guy at Bournemouth.
Yes,
the sporting director signed him as well.
I think he's out of contract at the end of this season, and he wants a move.
Sure, I think Tottenham were in for him before they got that lad from Genoa. No, not Van der Ven.
Dregerson
in January. Yeah, they wanted Lloyd Kelly before.
They got him. The new sporting director would have signed Lloyd Kelly to Bournemouth. So there's probably already like a previous. He likes him, and he's got a relationship probably with the agent, and maybe he's done a bit of a Pep Bayern sort of to De Bruyne where don't sign this contract because I'll sign you at Liverpool. Maybe I'm not saying he has. But he could obviously say, I'll be very interested in taking you there. So that could be something.
Yeah.
Well,
so Lord Kelly, and then we go to the Wolves, not for Pedro Neto, but probably for Ait Nouri. I know Tom is not a fan of Ait Nouri, but I like him.
Right. I mean, look, like we said, we don't know who's coming in. We don't know who's going. There's a lot of ifs and buts, but I can tell you for one thing though, at least we don't have Harry Maguire, so there's always a positive. And speaking of positive, thank you everyone for tuning in. It's been a fantastic episode. Thank you to Paul, Tom, and Carter for joining in. As I said before, if you are new around here, please make sure to hit like and subscribe for more content. And there's streams every single day, 7:30 p.m. UK time. Breathe. Right. Thank you so much for joining in, guys. Been an absolute pleasure. Everyone in the comments, thank you very much for watching. We will see you in the next episode. That'll be tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Until then, have a nice night.